thank you for being here, you all. I think that before reaching the end of human death, we'll take care right now of preserving life, right? And I think that a means to achieve that goal is food, eating, and all the relationship that we have with the foods that we eat every day. I'm delighted to be here sharing this panel with such great professionals intersecting multidisciplinary views and work on a definitely challenging and developing sector, which is personalization of food, cooking, and eating experiences. And we always say that at BCC, I'm from Labi. Labi is a laboratory, living lab created by BCC in San Sebastian. We like to challenge the traditional understanding of well, what is usually called precision nutrition. And we propose a concept that considers other elements, such as preferences, sensory perception, taste, or even mood. Right? Actually, in the panel before in two panels before this one, they were tapping into this matter. And that's what we're gonna discuss today with these three multidisciplinary experts. So nutrition scientist, futurist chef, and a developer, engineer from the tech standpoint. So thank you for being here. Estefania Simon Sasik from Basque Culinary Center, Silvia Berciano, Research Director from the Food and Nutrition Innovation Institute in Tufts University, and Michael Spranger, COO at Sony AI, this new branch or line from Sony exploring the application of artificial intelligence in different fields, and one of them is food and gastronomy. So I would like to start with you, Stefania. What's personalized gastronomy? How did we come up with this concept, right? Like personalized gastronomy versus precision nutrition or personalized nutrition, and why is it relevant nowadays?
Right. So about 3 years ago, we had a conference called Personalized Gastronomy where we coined this term, because at Basque Culinary Center, at the right at the heart of our institution, there are chefs. And we thought that precision nutrition was actually like missing a little point on like how do we integrate what's good for you with what you like, and you know, like the cultural aspects of it, the intangibles, the mood, the emotions of eating, right? Because it could be a little challenging to think that food is only functional, right? So we created a report that you can download at projectgastronomia.org, which is our foresight initiative, where we try to describe what personalized gastronomy is. So basically, it is the coming together of top-notch professionals from the culinary arts and chefs with top-notch professionals from nutrition, omic sciences, and genetics. So the idea is that we come together from the inception of the idea, because there is a lot of collaboration going on, but usually it is after an experiment, you say, okay, chefs, do this, right? Or chef said, I made this recipe, could you check out how it goes in the nutritional facts, right? And that is a very surface level collaboration. So what we're proposing is that from the inception, chefs and nutritionists and scientists talk to generate personalized gastronomy for people based on their preferences. But you know, the thing is that what's behind this is a lot of data. We see people more and more, I'm betting everyone in this audience, or most of them, have a phone which is accounting for the steps, or maybe like a bracelet that is looking for what's their heart rate, and all this data is being collected. And generating insights of what's good for you, what you need personally, right? So the idea is that once tech can be incorporated, we can really start tapping into food that is delicious, because chefs are creating it for you, food that is really good for you, because it's based on your data, and a big tech platform that can actually process this data and create recommendations. So as you see it, the idea is that we achieve precision nutrition, personalized food and sensory design, and also like new experiences. So what? we're, we're really early stage in this stuff, and maybe Silvia will tell you about it. But we're already developing projects at Basque Culinary Center that are tapping into this concept. So what we did was measure biometrics, genetics, and microbiota of a soccer team of first division in Spain, and correlate that with this history of injuries that they've had. So the idea is that we can understand which clusters of groups that have certain patterns in eating have certain tendencies to get injured along the season. As you know, soccer players get paid a lot of money, and it's really costly when they get injured. So what we decided is that we intersected what food should we recommend to avoid injuries. So we came up with an algorithm that actually, it's not me as a chef that came out with it, it's the collaborators, with an algorithm that predicted with 85% chance, 85% accuracy, what's good for these people and how can we avoid these injuries. The secret sauce was that normally these people already have a way of eating, and it's really hard for them to diverge from this because there are habits that are very hardwired in everyone's patterns of eating. But with chefs behind this, we could really create recipes that could cater to the things that they like, the things that remind them from home, the things that are exciting to them in ways that they could adhere to the diet the whole season, and they avoided injuries. We also do this with other groups, less personalized, less biometric, less genetic focus. Say there are people that have IBS or diabetes or obesity, and they really need to stick to a diet to get a better lifestyle. But it's really hard for them, again, because habits are hardwired. But we have created recipes that are fun, that are easy, that empower people to cook delicious things in collaboration with nutritionists, and we have achieved like fantastic results, like 2 centimeters less of waist circumference. I mean, these are terms that I'm not so familiar with, but like the scientist said, it's fantastic, and we are really proud because this is what chefs can do. We can really create things that are delicious, that create an experience and make it easy to be healthy, right?
Awesome.
Yeah.
So wrapping up, let's say that we are putting new variables into the equation.
Right.
So precision nutrition plus improving through, let's say, diet adherence that is based on gastronomy, a gastronomic approach, equals well-being improvement somehow?
I think definitely, but I think we also have to factor in things like stress. I mean, like, it is well-being to eat well, but there's a lot of other things. And I think this is what omics is actually tapping on, which is getting to a molecular level to understand what is really happening and the interactions and complex interactions that happen within us. So it's just understanding more of what we are, what our food is. Sure.
And you're starting to touch a point that I'm gonna ask, or that maybe Silvia will be able to talk more about. And it was really interesting to me in a panel before that Dean Ornish commented, there's an urge to go beyond the silos, right? To encourage that interdisciplinary collaboration. And he also mentioned like a mantra, let's say, eat less, move more, stress less, love more. I would change that eat less for eat better and more delicious.
Yes.
Let's say, to adapt to this equation. And Silvia, welcome to the panel, and tell us a bit like what's your take on this new concept of personalized gastronomy? How does it differ from precision nutrition, and why do you think is it relevant? If you think that it is relevant.
Thank you, Jose, Stefania, Michael. So honored to be here today with all of you. So yeah, of course, I think it's relevant. I think that one of the biggest challenges that we're facing today in precision nutrition is actually to ensure that those precise recommendations that we can develop based on all of these different omics, genomics, the microbiome, the metabolic profiles, responses to food, is actually to ensure that they are still relevant to the individual and that they fit within their lifestyles, within their preferences, within their culture. Because as you said before, food is medicine, yes, food is health, but it's also a lot more than that. It's also culture, it's also enjoyment. So success will only be possible when we actually incorporate all of these different aspects of food and put them into the equation. So I think that we are having a very interesting and relevant conversation here because it's not really is not something that we often get to do when looking at the being so focused on the health effects, to also consider these sensory characteristics that are so important for the eating experience and for creating and maintaining those eating habits. So I think that is really obvious nowadays that one size does not fit all. We have different disease risks, different predispositions, different preferences, different lifestyles, and before we used to think more in terms of averages. And if you look at the literature, the scientific literature in nutrition science, all of our understanding of nutrition is based on what's best for most, or what is the overall effect of a low fat diet or a low carb diet, or different bioactive compounds and functional foods. But that is really challenging to generalize when you look at the individual, because we're seeing effects that go in opposite directions. Some people are responders in a positive way, others have no response at all, and others actually exhibit negative responses even to foods that we consider healthy. And we can always think about the landmark paper by CB et al. In the microbiome, looking at how people responded differently to different foods depending on their gut microbiota. We always thought about glycemic responses in the terms of glycemic index and glycemic loads, generalizing how much or how little different foods would spike the sugar in the glucose in our blood. But nowadays we see that some people may actually have a higher glucose spike after eating a banana than eating a cookie, while for other people it's the exact opposite. So it's really interesting and fascinating to see the depth of all of those inter-individual differences, and starting to understand what are the drivers of those differences between different people, you and I. So I think that we really have to look deeper into the sensory aspects as well. Of course, like I think that right now we're just looking at postprandial responses because it's easy, it's very measurable, it's very quantifiable. For some of those other aspects, we still rely on questionnaires and self-reported responses. So it's kind of harder to study in a less subjective manner. Sorry, but I think it's really where we're heading, and the fact that we're also connected and rely on different wearables and sensors that are going to continue to be more present in our lives is really going to make it easier for us to collect the density of data and all of these different variables for us to really understand our food behavior better, our decisions when it comes to the different lifestyle factors that affect our health and how they all interact. You've mentioned diet, but you've also mentioned stress, Stefania, and you've mentioned as well physical activity, sleep, etc. It's also connected. That at the end of the day, it's a very complex equation, as everything that it has to do with behavior. But being complex doesn't mean that it's not predictable. We are very predictable in the way we conduct ourselves and make decisions. So just looking at the right inputs, we can develop the right strategies that work for the individual. So I think that it's very exciting the place where we are today, and how much we are starting to look beyond those averages and really focus on what works for a person specifically and being able to give those solutions. And I think that Michael will continue to add more detail on the different layers and the role that technology is playing in it. But I'm very excited about the Internet of Things and how artificial intelligence and these ultra connected devices that make our lives easier, but also can mean intrusion in our privacy. And if we are not cautious about how we use them, it may also mean that in the end, that behavior change may come from more restrictive approaches, like loss aversion. If we have to, right now we're seeing that there are foods that in different parts of the world are taxed based on negative health effects, negative health effects that are the result of excessive consumption of those foods. And I think that if we're not very careful with the way that we conduct our approaches for precision nutrition, we may end up being able to see this food is not good for this person. So what happens if you choose to eat it? Will the freedom be restricted? Will you have to pay a higher premium for your insurance? Because with a high degree of accuracy, we can predict that that's going to have a negative impact in your health, and someone's going to have to pay for it. I think there's a lot of different connotations for ethics and for regulation that right now, because the field is so young, we are just starting to look at. But again, it's very exciting to bring different disciplines together on the same stage, and I feel very optimistic about where the future is going to take us. I think it's just fascinating how complex we are and how much understanding all of the different factors, biology and non-biology, um, can improve our health and our health span to help us live
So,
longer and, more importantly, better.
yes, absolutely. And as you've mentioned, it is indeed a very complex, let's say, structure and a very complex equation because it brings a lot of new variables to it. And as you mentioned, studying all this in a more objective way requires data. And to get data, you need technology to gather that data. And that brings me to, to you, Michael. Thank you in the first. Thank you for being for connecting from Japan at this time in the midnight over there. Um, and it would be we are very I think we all are very interesting to know like how come is Sony opening this AI branch? How come gastronomy is one of the flagship projects, and what's the role of technology and data in all of this personalized gastronomy scenario? What's your take on that?
Perfect. Thanks. Thanks so much for inviting me to the panel. It's really exciting to be here and be able to talk about food. Um, so the answer why Sony is in this is actually quite simple. So Sony is a creative entertainment company, and we are active in many areas that are around entertainment and working with artists actually to combine technology and really unleash human imagination and creativity. And so Sony, as you may know, is active in movie business, but also in music. And if you think about what you did last week and what sort of experiences stuck with you over the week, you may say that, oh, I watched a specific concert, hopefully increasingly live again, or I watched a movie, or I had this amazing meal at this in this restaurant. And this is really where the things connect very clearly for us. Another dimension of this is that food is one of the earliest technologies. I think arguably fire and the processing of food is sort of the beginning of humankind. And so kind of combining this and building new technology that enables artists to really excel at this, I think is an amazing opportunity for Sony, but also more globally for the industry, I think. And I do think that we can add a specific voice to the conversation, right? So you have food companies that are very often driven by efficiency or bringing products to market. But I think that it's very, very important to, and all the chefs know that, the most important thing about food is that it's very tasty. And I think that's where we come in, and we want to explore essentially the use of AI in the gastronomy space. And more precisely then, why we think AI can help here? Well, I mean, I think it's already in sort of the term, essentially, personalization. Personalization is an AI technology. Really, personalization takes off when you start having AI models. And of course, you might think about things like Facebook and Netflix and so on. And maybe these days, this kind of personalized AI is very often misused to serve you advertisements. But don't be fooled by this. Personalization is a very, very powerful technology. And food is very personal to us, right? So if you think about your daily habits, your moods over the day, the things that shape your experience of food, what food we like actually depends on kind of complex relationships, your relationship with your mother, but also what you just ate, 10 minutes ago. And so there's this kind of really complex interaction between who you are as a person, what's your development, but also what's your biology, like, what's your genetic background, what are the risk factors you have in terms of health, and so on. And this is where I think also the gains of technology like AI are really tremendous. So if you think about, for instance, that maybe 20% of all cancers in the United States are linked to unhealthy diet or excessive consumption of specific foods and drinks, we can really have a large impact here. But as already mentioned, we can only have that impact if the food is tasty. It doesn't help to kind of have food that is just um, just healthy. It needs to be very, very tasty. And this is where I think AI comes in, because it can help combine the personal data, the data about your day, the data about your history, the data about your preferences, with the knowledge we have in biology and medicine, the interactions of food and food ingredients with your body. And this is where AI really kind of hopefully can shine, because it can help sift through all this data, find patterns that may be good for individuals by looking at people more broadly speaking, and then kind of shaping also through intervention your daily life, and making it happen that you can have both an amazing experience but also stay healthy. And another aspect I want to mention here is also sustainability. So it's very important, right? So, food has a really important impact on climate change. And so addressing all these issues requires understanding large amounts of data. And this is really where AI as a technology comes in
I'm
for
curious
us.
to know what kind of challenges are you facing in this uh, task of gathering different data points and also new data points that are not being gathered and processed right now. I guess in that mission of yours of creating new tools, like innovative tools, you are also thinking of, okay, what new types of data can we take and how? So what kind of challenges are you facing in that matter, and what are you doing?
So they're really, so there's a, I think the digitization of the food industry, or generally speaking of food production, right? So both going from sort of the artisanal world all the way to the large corporations, I think it's really just at the beginning, and we do not have enough data in order to make really good models and predictions. But I think this is going to come, and it's going to come with some of the things that already been mentioned. So, like large data sets from biology and medicine combined with personal data, for instance, from your mobile phones and other kinds of sensors that may be increasingly deployed in your homes, and then also in the devices that we're using, right? The fridges, the cooking appliances, and so on. And I think that's really just at the beginning. And I think there's like more broadly speaking, challenges around societal acceptance of this. How do we deal with this technology? Because I do think there's ethical risks that we probably can address also in this panel going forward. But more precisely, what we are very much laser focused on right now is really understanding the creativity of chefs. So we look at one of the problems that we're looking at is menu creation and food creation, more broadly speaking. And what we're really interested there is capturing creativity. So I think it's already been mentioned, there's maybe this understanding that AI can do a lot of like sort of inference to the mean or inference to the average. And you can see that maybe in your YouTube stream, which may or may not be working well for you. And so there are technical challenges around this, there are data challenges around this, and we are addressing this by really combining data sets from different perspectives. So we are looking at sort of the compositions of food. We look at large data sets that come from the biomedical literature about how food, drugs, and diseases interact. So basically the kind of scientific knowledge that we might have. And a lot of this, of course, is in the minds of scientists and in the papers that scientists write. And we need to kind of get that out in order to make it available to build models that can actually be helpful to individuals, right? So that's our main aim, is really to be helpful to individuals, both on the creative side, the chefs, but also, of course, consumers.
You've just touched up a point that I wanted to put on the table later, but before, and this is actually a little bit related. It has to do with with data handling. There's a popular belief that algorithms are designed to reinforce existing behaviors. So how can AI strike a balance between what we already like or need and absolutely new things that we would like to discover, right? Like to get us out of a bubble that seems to be each time more difficult to pop.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe a good example of this is some of the systems we are building, which is around menu creation. And of course, we use recipe data for this. And then if you, for instance, have a set of ingredients and you ask, like, what is a good ingredient that you want to add to that set of ingredients in order to make a new dish? Of course, one of the easiest answers might be salt or sugar or something like that, but it's also one of the most boring answers that you can possibly give, right? Because that's basically sort of expected. And so we can build mathematical models of novelty. We actually have really good understanding of what novelty is within a certain context of data. And we can use that then to tailor responses of the system that are not obvious. And so there are examples of this that we are also working on, where it's actually easy to sort of kind of grasp, build mathematical models of novelty and then use those in order to create new things. And then also, just more broadly speaking, there's a large part of AI that is also focusing on exploration. Like, what is a good next step to try that hasn't been tried before, but that has some chance of success? And a lot of this comes then from background data. So, maybe you have some knowledge about the food composition and you find sort of underlying structures of things that might go well together, and you use that in order to create new food. So just a very simple example here. One of the classic also strategies that's known in creating new foods is to combine ingredients that share specific molecules. And so that in itself can create novel combinations that are that you might not have thought of before. And there are many strategies like that that can help create new recipes. I just saw that I kind of disappeared. I hope you can still see me.
we can see you now. So that's definitely a very interesting path that we're opening up. And now, just to close and wrap up very quickly, I would like to have a line from each of you regarding something that might be controversial. What if better health or better well-being requires sacrificing privacy, right? So this brings to the table topics like data governance, transparency, transference, and ownership, right? There are different approaches in Europe than Asia and then the United States, for instance. So what future do you foresee in this data management topic? Who will own the data?
I'm not a data person, but what I've thought a lot is that chefs, we are very curious about other cultures. And they touched upon this when they were saying how to accelerate discoveries, right, or scientific discoveries. And I think it's really important that this data is collected from everywhere in the world, from all sorts of ingredients, from all sorts of cultures and people, and the most people can be included in generating this data that these systems can actually recommend on. Because it is a privileged concept right now, and the more access, for me, it's just better. So I don't know who owns it, but who generates it, it's also very important.
Thank you, Stefania. What's your take? Oh, I'm
so sorry.
I'm sorry, that was very sharp, like
yes.
4 seconds later. So I'm really, it's a shame that we couldn't hear your point on that last question, Michael and Sylvia, but you definitely shared with the audience a very interesting topics and
we're very
fields
sorry.
of study that we are developing on, and thank you very much. Please
so much.
A round of applause for our guests. And
thank you.
We finished.